Ladies and gentlemen, we're writing a book. It's called What a Difference a Day Makes. And in my life, this is chapter 3 that we're doing today of a 10-chapter book. And today, it's a great subject that we're doing, and it's joining the Army. And that's our subject. And back when I was a young man, that was a day in my life that mattered. I mean, a lot of things happened in the 2 years I spent in the military. And it was things that really mattered through my whole life. And that's what we're trying to do with this book, What a Difference a Day Makes. Yesterday, or when we was doing the last chapter, it was all about things that happened from when I was in high school through Vietnam. I'm 79 years old, and I've lived a great life, and that's part of this book, because we're taking the 10 days out of the 79 years that really made a difference and writing this book about that. I'll never forget the day, and I was drafted in the Army, and I just moved my parents from Blue Ridge down to Jonesboro, Georgia, into a brand new home they'd just bought, and I moved them in like yesterday, spent one night, and then went in the Army. But I got them moved in that house down there, and so I got drafted in the Army. And in that, they put me on a bus, and we went down to Fort Benning, Georgia, for basic training. And when you get off that bus at Fort Benning, you're no longer human. You belong to the United States Army, and they're going to try their best to intimidate, do whatever, but it's all intended to get you prepared for that picture right there. And when I was drafted, I went in, and I had a lot of preconceived notions, and I got most of them from my uncle, who was a paratrooper in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He was one of the first men to ever jump out of an airplane as an Army soldier. But his stories with that were phenomenal. But the day that I got to Fort Benning, this little old DI came out and was screaming at us like we was redhead stepchildren, and absolutely I just wanted to pinch his head off. But here it is. You're in the Army, and you do what they say, the whole 9 yards. But I never one time in all of that, because I think they do a lot of brainwashing in basic training, AIT, but I really honestly don't think that I ever got to that level, because I was attentive to what's going on in my life, because I had an exit strategy when I went in the Army. I'm going to get out of it and hug my mom. And that was my strategy when I went to Vietnam. I'm going to get out of it and go hug my mom. And then we did. But in this process, you got into all of the things that comes in basic training. You had to eat in X amount of minutes. You had X amount of minutes to make your bed of a morning. All the stuff was, and then you had PT. You had all this stuff that got you prepared to be in the Army. And it was called basic training. And then you got into that, and they started asking you, what do you want to do in the Army? And that's called your MOS, Method of Service. Now, I knew I wanted to be a paratrooper because of Uncle Smitty. Now, it ain't smart for somebody to want to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. But he was so intent on telling me the masculine part of being a paratrooper. You're special training. You got all that. And if you're going then do the best you can. Be the best. And to him, that's what it was. Paratrooper's the best. So when we was down in basic training and our DI was asking what we want to do, now they got all their data that they got in front of them about every soldier there, but I told Sergeant Lilly, he was my drill instructor, I want to be a paratrooper. They couldn't make you be a paratrooper. You had to volunteer, and that was the beauty of that. I was drafted in the Army, but I volunteered to be a paratrooper. And in that sentence, as soon as they were asking that, that's the time when I volunteered for Vietnam, was when I was in basic training, asking about an MOS. I knew I was going to be a paratrooper, but I volunteered for Vietnam because my older brother was drafted 1 month before me. And he was across the base at doing his AIT training when I was there doing basic training. But I volunteered for Vietnam, and I knew this. They couldn't send him to Vietnam without him volunteering. And he was married and had a child on the way. So now I regretted that statement a lot of times. But I really believed in my heart of hearts that he would have died had he went to Vietnam. I believed it. I don't know why. I can't explain that. But anyway, I volunteered for that. And so we go through basic training. And it is rough and raggedy, PT. And now I am put in the Airborne Infantry. Now that's AIT. We're going from Benning to Fort Gordon for Airborne Infantry. And they're going to train us how to be a ground pounder. And now in basic, they start teaching you how to shoot and that kind of stuff. But in AIT, they advance that. And it gets better and better. We went from a M1 to a M16 in AIT, learning how to shoot. And then we were taking airborne infantry. So we practiced some just jumping out of the tailgate of a plane there at Fort Gordon just to try to stay orientated to that. But it was cold beyond words at Fort Gordon, Georgia in January. And that's when we was doing the AIT training. And we got that done, and you learn people. That was in our training unit. But we basically knew, I did because I volunteered, but basically everybody there knew they was going to Vietnam. And so there was an attitude with that, not a bad one, but an attitude. I want to listen. I want to learn. This is important. This is important. And so we go through the AIT, and then comes jump school. We go back to Fort Benning for 3 weeks of jump school. We're learning how to jump out of airplanes. And the PT with that is extreme. I mean, they run us ragged everywhere we go, running, uphill, down, whatever. And it was amazing to me. We got to airborne school, and our drill instructors were out doing what they do, and here we are, and we got out in the field to start practicing airborne. And they put us on a little, well, it wasn't even higher than this chair. I'm standing on that, jumping down on the ground. Over and over and over and over again, teaching us something called a PLF, parachute landing fall, so you could land without breaking something. That makes sense. So we go through that, and we're now in week 1 of this jump school. And parachute landing fall, 2 foot. And then we go to a 8-foot platform. and we jump off of that with a bungee cord tied to us so it'll break a fall a little bit, and they get that done. Then went through over and over. Then we go to the 33-foot tower, and they strap a harness on us and go up 33 foot, stand like you're standing in the door of an airplane with a bungee cord. And that's where all this bungee jumping came from that you see now. And they get you up there, and really, you don't think about it much, but 33 foot's a long ways up in the air if you're going to jump. And, I mean, it got my attention. And they make you stand there and tell them your name, rank, serial number, and then they say go, and you jump. And you jump out of there, and there's a bungee cord and a line that goes all the way to the ground over there. And it's a pretty good little ride. It was fun. Over and over and over. And so about a week and a half into that, and you're running in between all this stuff, and I promise you this is going somewhere in a few minutes. Then you got a 300-foot tower. They strap you in a parachute and pull you up by that parachute 300 feet. Now, kids, that's a long ways up there. And then they just release the parachute, and you fall, and now you understand the importance of that little 2-foot thing that you're learning, a PLF, parachute landing fall. So you get that. Whew. And we only did that 3 or 4 times. But then come next, airplane. Well, I'd never been on an airplane. I mean, in flight or anything. I was simulating inside on the ground there, but in the plane, and you're nervous. I mean, nervous. And then we've got to do 5 jumps, and we're going to do 5 jumps in 3 days. So we go down to the tarmac, and we get on an airplane. And in yesterday's chapter 2 in the book, we already talked about what it felt like to be out there on that plane about to jump. But what I'm trying to say with this, you learn the importance of training. Hear me, you learn the importance of training. And that's really what the military is all about. Training you for a M.A.S.H, method of service. And, of course, we sit right now as Christians and sitting up here in the mountains. When you think about it, they're just training to go to war. Well, that's it. That's what it was. And so we go through and we jump one time the first day. Then the second day, we jump twice. And then the third day, we jumped once. And then the fourth day, we jumped once. And they give us 5 jumps. And each one of those was a huge learning process that I want us to really talk about in the next segment of what we're doing. Because it don't all happen in 1 minute. It don't all happen, but it gets you there to where you're prepared to jump. And then what would you do if you're jumping into combat where people are shooting at you and all that stuff? Now, this very minute, I want to change armies. Change armies. Because it's my goal to get you to join the M.A.S.H army. And it's a motivated army seeking heaven. The principles are all the same. I want you to join and then get basic training, AIT, advanced individual training, and then there comes your MOS, your method of service. Because we truly believe, and I just know it, when you're born again, ladies and gentlemen, when you're born again, you get three things instantly. You get peace that you can get no other way in your life when you're born again. You got peace. And that peace comes inside that no matter what, I get to go to heaven. If I die today, I get to go to heaven. And that was one thing that was really in me in Vietnam. No matter what happens, I get to go to heaven. That's awesome. And then the next thing is find purpose. Purpose is huge in everything we do in our life. What is our purpose? Why are we here? What are we doing? And then power. The power to do whatever your purpose is. And God has to put that in us. I mean, we're asking, we're training, we're doing all we can do. But peace, purpose, and power is what comes with being born again. And born again is absolutely what Jesus said to all of us. You must be born again. Nothing else. That gets you to heaven. But if you're going to be in the army, and that's what we're talking about, and you can't help it, when you're born again, you're born again. And what you thought about yesterday is no longer there. You're now thinking about this. And this is the importance of what you're going to do. And the excitement of that, I just wish you could, as you see people that are born again, that difference, because there is a difference. It changes. And your want-tos change. And when they change, then we are here to say, let us help you train how to get recruits into God's kingdom. How do you talk to somebody to get them to go, yeah, I want some of that? Well, it's important that your message, yours, is dynamic enough to say, let me tell you about Jesus. But you can't start in that conversation. Back off and get their attention with a warm-up. And it ain't no different than training, basic training, or any of the other things. Training how to do that. And we want to come to your church and train how to recruit. So if you'd like that, let us know, because that's what we do. We want to get people into the M.A.S.H army, or God's army, trained how to recruit other people in. Because without peace, purpose, and power, we're just dormant. It wouldn't be any difference in joining the army and going down to basic training and never go anywhere else. And I've seen that happen so many times in my life, that going to churches and they're seeing people saved or born again, and that's as far as they train. Don't go any further. Well, that's fine if that's where you want to be, but I think it's exciting to think about getting to heaven, and there's just a group of people saying, there's George. He's the one that told me about Jesus, guys. This guy right here. He's the reason, part of the reason I'm here. And there's pride in being a born-again Christian. When you go in the army, you're just like everybody else. And then they put a uniform on you. It's just an old green, olive drab, but we're in the army. It's got my name right here. It's got United States Army right here. And then you go into AIT, and then they put a stripe on your sleeve. Makes you a private. Awesome. And then you go to jump school, and they put wings right here on your chest. Lets everybody else know you're a paratrooper. Now in God's army, there's things that happens the same way. You join, and you're born again, and then you're baptized. What does that baptizing do? it tells everybody that you've got on the uniform. You're in the army. You're God's army. And there's pride with that. And as I got into the army, it was beautiful to me to have those wings and the things that goes with it, so another soldier could look at me and tell how long I'd been in the army, what my M.A.S.H was, because it's on all of our collars, and what's your rank. A soldier can look at another soldier and tell a multitude of stuff. Well, do you think that we ought to be that way with Christians? I want to know that guy or woman is a child of God. They're born again. And they're not a bit embarrassed to tell you that they're born again if they are. Because the beauty of being born again is real simple. That minute that happens, I'm born again. You can make this statement, period. The worst thing that could happen to me today is that I die. And in the next breath, and mean it, the best thing that could happen to me today is I die. And the difference, and there's a lot of similarities, but the difference in the Army and the M.A.S.H Army. I saw a lot of people die in Vietnam. Lots of them. Too many. And it hurt. And I've seen so many people here saved or born again and never go one step further. Don't reach out and get a hold of something that matters. And you see, I'm somebody that's been to heaven. It's awesome beyond words. But I look at things different since that happened. Total peace in my life. No matter what, I go to heaven. And back when I was 30 or 40 years old, I had plenty of time to do anything I need to do for God. Well, I'm now 79. And the average age of a man in America is 76. What does that tell me? This old body's going to lay down pretty soon. So how much time do I have to invite you to go to heaven with me? And I mean that. You. I want you to go to heaven with me. And it's no time. Boom. I promise you I was 40 years old yesterday. Day before yesterday, I was in high school. It's the way it feels. Ask whoever's in your world that's close to my age, they'll tell you it's quick. But there's nothing quick about eternity. Now just think about that. You got forever. And that's another chapter we'll get to in a day or two. But ladies and gentlemen, in your life, no matter what, the most important day that comes out of the 10 days, or how many days you got to do, is the day you're born again. And when you join the army, it just starts. Now, we got two choices. We can make that fun and enjoyable, or we can sit on a stool and do nothing. Because either way, we're going to be in heaven before long. And here's the conversation. How many people in heaven, when you get there, are going to see you come through the gate and start cheering because you're the one that introduced them to Christ and the path to heaven? Think about it. I want my bus to be a big one, full of happy people headed to heaven. So let's army this up, train it up, and have fun with everything we do. Enjoy it, because Jesus paid the price, and all we got to do is accept it and then enjoy it. Be born again. And today's the day to do that. And when you read the book or see a video, there'll be a caption at the bottom of it with phone numbers and that kind of stuff. If you need more detail, please call. Get in touch with us, or better than that, come up here to the North Georgia mountains and see us. It's beautiful. We got a big veteran cemetery and trout stream and 38 acres out here, just beautiful. And we've got a rebirthing center. Matter of fact, we're sitting in part of that right now, that we want to see 160,000 people born again through the M.A.S.H and GPS, and naturally all of that through Christ. This is the old coach. See you in the next chapter.